Imagine coming home after working 80 hours a week for a month, fueled by nothing but black coffee and the dream of finally seeing your reward in the driveway. Now, imagine that space being empty, not just empty, but replaced by the smug, lingering scent of a betrayal you never saw coming. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. Instead, I pulled out my phone, looked at a small glowing icon, and I laughed. Because while they thought they had stolen my pride and joy to give my golden child brother a win, they didn't know I had the power to turn his influencer road trip into a desert nightmare with a single tap on my screen. My name is Olivia, and I'm 30 years old. I live in the heart of Seattle, a city where the gray skies usually match my mood after dealing with my family. I am a senior software engineer, a title I earned by sacrificing my 20s to flickering computer screens, while my younger brother Austin sacrificed his time to luxury parties he couldn't afford. The flight back from my business trip in San Francisco had been grueling. All I wanted was to see my chalk gray Porsche 911. It wasn't just a car to me. It was the physical manifestation of every late night and every missed holiday. It was the one thing I owned that they couldn't touch, or so I thought. As my Uber pulled into the driveway of the house I, ironically, paid the majority of the mortgage for, my heart skipped a beat. The spot where my Porsche usually sat was vacant. I burst through the front door, my boots clicking sharply on the hardwood. My father, Robert, was sitting in his armchair, while my mother, Diane, was hovering nearby. "Where is it, Dad?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of exhaustion and fury. He didn't even look up at first. "Hello to you too, Olivia. Austin had a very important networking event in Las Vegas this weekend. His old sedan broke down, and we decided it wasn't safe for him to drive that junk. So we gave him your keys. He's a good driver, Olivia. Don't be so selfish." Selfish? The word tasted like ash. That car cost me $150,000. You gave him my keys without even a text? "Family helps each other," my mom added, her voice sharp and defensive. "You have everything, Olivia. Let your brother have one win. He'll be back in 5 days. Stop making a scene." I stood there, feeling like a stranger in my own home. But then, the anger cooled into something sharper. I remembered the custom security and kill switch system I had coded myself. They thought they had handed Austin a trophy. They didn't realize they had handed him a cage. If you want to see how I taught my family a lesson they'll never forget, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens in the desert. They say family is a safety net, but in my house, I was the net and everyone else was just jumping. Growing up in our suburban home in Seattle, there was a very clear hierarchy. My brother Austin was the sun around which our family's solar system revolved, and I was just a distant, cold planet, orbiting on my own, expected to keep the lights on without ever being seen. My parents, Robert and Diane, always looked at Austin like he was a miracle waiting to happen. To them, he had potential and charisma. To the rest of the world, he was a spoiled kid who never finished anything he started. I remember being 14 when I first realized I was on my own. My mother came home crying because the electric bill was past due, and my father's consulting business had hit another dry spell. Did they ask Austin to help? No, he was too busy with his varsity football dreams. I was the one who went out and got a job sweeping hair at a local salon after school. I would come home with my hands smelling like cheap shampoo and the tips tucked into my socks, only to see my parents buying Austin the newest pair of cleats with the money I'd just handed over for the family fund. The pattern never changed, it only grew more expensive. While I was pulling all-nighters to keep my GPA high enough for a full-ride scholarship, Austin was crashing cars and expecting a pat on the back for surviving. When I got my acceptance letter from the University of Washington with every penny of tuition covered, I ran into the kitchen, my heart pounding with pride. "Mom, Dad, I got the full scholarship. We don't have to worry about college costs at all," I yelled, waving the letter. My mom didn't even look up from the mirror where she was helping Austin fix his tie for a party. "That's nice, Olivia. You've always been the studious one. Austin, dear, stand still. You want to look your best tonight, don't you?" My achievement was a footnote. Austin's social life was the headline. I worked 3 jobs during college. I was a tutor, a barista, and a junior coder. I barely slept. I lived on ramen and caffeine because I knew that if I fell, there was no one to catch me. Meanwhile, my parents were draining their modest savings and taking loans from me that they never intended to repay to fund Austin's entrepreneurial ventures. First, it was a custom sneaker business that lasted 2 weeks. Then it was a crypto investment group that disappeared overnight along with $5,000 of my hard-earned money. "He's just finding his way, Olivia," my father would say every time I questioned the unfairness. Family doesn't keep score, but they were keeping score. They were just making sure I was the one doing all the adding, and Austin was the one doing all the subtracting. By the time I hit my late 20s and landed my role as a senior software engineer, I was the one paying for the family home. I let my parents stay there because I felt a sense of duty, a weight on my shoulders that they had carefully placed there since I was a child. I paid the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, and even the grocery bills. And yet, every dinner at that table felt like I was an uninvited guest at Austin's victory parade. "Austin is really building a brand on Instagram," my mom would brag, ignoring the fact that I had just been promoted to lead a multi-million-dollar project. "He's an influencer in the making. He just needs a bit more support." The support usually meant me. It meant me bailing him out when he maxed out his credit cards or paying for his networking trips to Miami that were actually just booze-filled vacations. Then came the Porsche. Buying that car wasn't just about luxury. For me, it was a symbol. It was $150,000 worth of proof that I had made it despite them, not because of them. I had researched the model for a year. I had saved specifically for it, keeping that money in a private account they couldn't touch. When I finally drove it into the driveway, the same driveway I now stood in, empty-handed, I expected a moment of recognition. I walked into the house and said, "Dad, come look at the car. I finally got the 911. Robert walked out, squinted at the beautiful, sleek machinery, and shrugged. "It's a bit flashy, don't you think? You should be careful with your money, Olivia. Your brother is struggling with his car's transmission. You could have bought 2 practical sedans for the price of that one ego trip." My heart had shattered that day, but I didn't let them see it. I just parked the car, locked it, and went to my room. Austin, of course, spent the next week asking to borrow it for a quick spin, to impress some girl or film a reel. "No, Austin," I had told him firmly. "This car is off limits. It's not a toy, it's a precision machine. And I worked too hard for it to let you trash it like you did your last 3 cars. He had smirked at me, that same smug, entitled look he'd had since we were kids. "Fine, sis. Keep your precious. We'll see how long you can stay so high and mighty." My parents had sided with him, as always. "You're being so materialistic, Olivia," Diane had sighed over dinner. "It's just a car. Why are you so determined to hold it over your brother's head? It's like you enjoy seeing him fail." The gaslighting was constant. They turned my boundaries into cruelty and Austin's theft into need. They looked at my success as a communal bank account and Austin's failures as growing pains. But I wasn't just a nice person anymore. I was a coder. I understood systems. I understood that every action has a reaction. I had spent years being the responsible daughter, the one who fixed the leaks and paid the debts. I was the silent engine, keeping the family ship afloat, while Austin was the hole in the hull. Before we continue with how I turned the tables on them, take a second to hit that subscribe button. If you've ever been the unappreciated one in your family, you know exactly how I felt. Stick around, because the revenge I planned is something you have to hear to believe. I knew Austin. I knew his arrogance would eventually lead him to take what wasn't his. So, a month before my San Francisco trip, I did something they didn't know about. I didn't just buy a car, I built a trap. I installed a specialized aftermarket security module, a custom-coded piece of hardware that integrated with the car's ECU. It gave me total control via a secure cloud server. I could track its location, monitor the speed, and most importantly, I could kill the engine and lock the doors with a single command from my phone. I called it the reality check. Standing in the foyer now, listening to my father tell me that Austin needed a win by stealing my $150,000 reward, that laugh I let out wasn't one of joy. It was the sound of a woman who was finally, officially, done being the family's ATM. "You're right, Dad," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Austin does need a win. I hope he enjoys it while it lasts." I walked up to my room, not to pack, but to open my laptop. My parents thought they were teaching me a lesson about sharing. They had no idea I was about to give them a masterclass in consequences. The atmosphere in the house shifted from cold to suffocating just 3 weeks before my scheduled business trip to San Francisco. It started with a phone call at 2 in the morning. Not a call to me, of course, but to my parents. I woke up to the sound of my mother wailing in the hallway and my father's frantic footsteps. Austin had done it again. He had crashed his third car in 2 years, a sensible sedan I had helped him buy, into a parked SUV while vlogging and driving at the same time. The next morning at the breakfast table, the air was thick with the smell of burnt toast and desperation. Austin sat there with a small bandage on his forehead, looking more annoyed than remorseful. My parents were hovering over him as if he had just returned from a war zone rather than a self-inflicted fender bender. "He's lucky to be alive, Olivia," my mother said, her eyes red from crying, as if she expected me to offer a standing ovation for his survival. "He was distracted, Mom. He was filming a video while driving." "Again," I said, not looking up from my coffee. "He's not lucky, he's reckless. And now he's carless." Austin scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "It was a freak accident, sis. The sun hit the lens. Besides, that car was a piece of junk anyway. It didn't fit my aesthetic. How am I supposed to build a luxury brand driving a 10-year-old Toyota?" I finally looked at him, my grip tightening on my mug. "You build a brand by working, Austin, not by crashing cars other people paid for." My father, Robert, cleared his throat, the sound a warning. "Olivia, that's enough. We need to focus on a solution. Austin has that big Creator Summit in Las Vegas coming up. It's a 5-day event. He's been talking about it for months. He can't show up in an Uber, and we can't afford to rent him anything decent after the insurance hike we're about to hit." I felt a chill go down my spine. I knew exactly where this was going. The pattern was as predictable as a line of code. "I have a car," Robert continued, his voice dropping into that reasonable tone he used right before he asked for a massive sacrifice. "But it's old. Diane needs hers for her garden club. So, we were thinking, since you're going to be in San Francisco for 5 days, and your Porsche will just be sitting in the garage, collecting dust." "No," I said. The word was out of my mouth before he could even finish the sentence. "Olivia, just listen," my mother started. "No, Mom, absolutely not. That car is not a family asset. It is a high-performance machine. Austin can't even handle a Toyota without hitting a stationary object. There is no world in which I hand him the keys to a 450-horsepower Porsche." The silence that followed was deafening. Austin's face turned a deep shade of red. "It's just a car, Olivia. Why do you have to be such a gatekeeper? You're always looking down on me because you have a fancy job and a fancy degree. It's just one trip. I'll be careful. I'll even wash it before you get back." "You don't even wash your own dishes, Austin. You are not driving my car." My father slammed his hand on the table, making the plates rattle. "Is this how we raised you? To be so obsessed with a piece of metal that you'd see your brother's career fail? You're acting like a stranger, not a daughter. We're a family. We share. We support. That's what the Ramsey name stands for." "No, Dad." I stood up, my voice trembling but firm. "Sharing is when I pay 60% of the mortgage on this house so you and Mom can live comfortably. Supporting is when I paid off Austin's credit card debt last Christmas so he wouldn't get sued. This isn't sharing. This is enabling. If Austin wants a luxury car for his summit, he can rent one with the money he's supposedly making from his brand." I walked out of the kitchen, their voices rising behind me, calling me heartless, materialistic, and arrogant. I went straight to my room and locked the door, leaning against it as my heart hammered in my chest. I wasn't just angry. I was disappointed. It wasn't about the car. It was about the fact that they saw my hard work as nothing more than a resource for Austin to deplete. If you've ever been the responsible one who gets punished for their own success, you know this feeling. It's a mix of guilt and rage that the people you love the most are the ones who respect you the least. If this story is hitting home, subscribe now and share your own golden child stories in the comments. I read every single one of them. Over the next few days, the house became a battlefield of passive aggression. My mother stopped making me coffee in the morning. My father wouldn't look me in the eye. Austin, however, was strangely quiet. He stopped asking for the keys. He stopped arguing. In any other family, this might have been a sign of acceptance. In mine, it was a red flag the size of a billboard. I knew them too well. They didn't accept no. They just looked for a different way to get to yes. Being a senior software engineer means I spend my life thinking about security. I think about backdoors, vulnerabilities, and unauthorized access. And I realized my car had a major vulnerability. My parents had a spare key to the house, and I kept my car keys on a hook in the mudroom. I decided to spend my weekend not relaxing, but fortifying. I had already bought a specialized OBD2 onboard diagnostics module a few months ago, intended for performance tuning. But I realized I could repurpose it. I spent 18 hours straight in my room, my fingers flying across the keyboard, writing a custom script. I didn't want a standard car alarm. Standard alarms are easy to bypass. I wanted something smarter. I integrated the module with a hidden GPS tracker and a cellular SIM card. I coded a mobile interface that gave me a live feed of the car's telemetry, speed, RPM, fuel level, and precise location. But the kill switch was my masterpiece. I didn't want it to just cut the engine. That could be dangerous if the car was in high-speed traffic. No, I designed a multi-stage protocol. Stage 1, a remote lockout. If the car was parked, I could lock the doors and disable the ignition so it couldn't be started. Stage 2, the nudge. If the car was in motion, I could trigger a series of dashboard warnings, simulated engine failures, oil pressure drops, and cooling system alerts to force the driver to pull over. Stage 3, the containment. Once the car came to a stop and the GPS confirmed it was in a safe location, I could remotely cut the fuel pump and lock every door from the inside, effectively turning the car into a high-tech prison cell until I chose to release it. I went out to the garage at 3 a.m. on Tuesday, the night before my trip. The garage was cold and smelled of oil and rain. I crawled under the dashboard, my hands steady as I wired the module into the car's ECU, engine control unit. I tucked the wires away so perfectly that even a professional mechanic wouldn't notice them at a glance. Just in case, I whispered to myself as I tucked the module behind the kick panel. The next morning, the day of my departure, the atmosphere at breakfast was eerily pleasant. "Have a safe flight, Olivia," my mother said, handing me a small bag of snacks. "Don't work too hard. San Francisco is a beautiful city. Try to enjoy the view." "I will, Mom. Thanks." My father even gave me a hug. "We'll look after the house. Don't worry about a thing. Your car is safe in the garage." "I appreciate that, Dad," I said, my eyes scanning the room. Austin wasn't there. "Where's Austin?" I asked. "Oh, he had an early meeting with some sponsors downtown," my dad said casually, sipping his coffee. "He took the bus. He's really trying to show us he's being responsible now." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But as I sat in the back of my Uber on the way to SeaTac Airport, I pulled out my phone and opened my custom app. Status: vehicle stationary. Location: home garage. Engine: off. I took a deep breath. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was the crazy one they always claimed I was. I checked into my flight, boarded the plane, and tried to focus on the multi-million-dollar presentation waiting for me in California. But 4 hours later, as my plane touched down at SFO and my phone reconnected to the network, a notification popped up on my screen that made my blood run cold. 12:45 p.m. Engine started. 12:46 p.m. Geofence breached. Vehicle leaving Seattle area. Current speed, 75 miles per hour. Direction, south. I sat in my seat as the other passengers scrambled for their luggage, the roar of the engines fading into a dull hum in my ears. I opened the tracking map. The little blue dot that represented my $150,000 dream was moving rapidly down I-5, heading away from Seattle. I didn't call the police. I didn't call my parents. Not yet. I just watched the dot move. They had waited until I was 800 miles away. They had lied to my face, hugged me, and then handed my keys to the one person I told them to keep away from my car. I looked at the kill switch button on my screen, glowing a soft, dangerous red. "Enjoy the ride, Austin," I whispered, a cold smile spreading across my face, "because it's going to be the most expensive trip of your life." I closed the app, put my phone in my pocket, and walked off the plane. I had a presentation to give. I could wait. The further he got from home, the sweeter the lesson would be. San Francisco is a city of hills, fog, and high-stakes technology. But for the first 2 days of my trip, all I could see was a small blue dot on my phone screen moving across the map of Nevada. I was there to present a cloud security architecture to a board of investors, a deal worth millions. But my mind was stuck in a garage in Seattle that I knew, with absolute certainty, was empty. The first night in my hotel room, I sat by the window overlooking the Bay Bridge, my laptop open. My presentation was perfect, but my heart was heavy. I decided to give them one chance. Just one. I picked up the phone and called my mother. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just checking in. How's everything at the house?" "Oh, Olivia, everything is wonderful, dear." Diane's voice was sugary sweet, the kind of sweetness that usually hides a bitter truth. "The garden is looking lovely, and your father is finally fixing that leak in the guest bathroom. How is the big city?" "It's fine, Mom. Listen, I had a weird dream about my car. Is it okay? Did you check the garage today?" There was a microsecond of silence, the kind of pause that happens when someone is quickly mentally checking their script. "Of course, honey. I saw it this morning when I went to get the shears. It's sitting right there under its cover, looking as shiny as ever. Why do you ask?" I looked at my tablet, which was synced to my custom tracking app. My Porsche was currently parked at a luxury resort on the Las Vegas Strip. It had been driven at an average speed of 85 miles per hour for the last 6 hours. "Just making sure, Mom. You know how much that car means to me," I replied, my skin crawling at the ease with which she lied. As soon as I hung up, I felt a wave of nausea. She didn't just lie, she did it with a smile in her voice. I realized then that I wasn't just a daughter to them, I was an asset to be managed. The next morning, I did what any modern woman in my position would do. I went on Instagram. I searched for Austin's influencer handle, @AustinLive. His profile was a masterclass in fake success, but his latest story was what broke me. It was a video filmed in 4K. There was Austin, wearing a designer jacket he'd probably charged to the emergency credit card I gave my parents. He was standing in front of my chalk gray Porsche. The desert sun was hitting the paint perfectly. "Yo, what's up, guys? Finally made it to Vegas for the Creator Summit," he shouted over a thumping bass track. He panned the camera over the sleek lines of the Porsche. "Check out the new whip. Hard work pays off. Stay on the grind. #new car. #Porsche life. #success." The comments were flooded. He wasn't just using my car, he was claiming it as his own. He was building his brand on the back of my 80-hour work weeks. I watched as he got into the driver's seat, my seat, and revved the engine. The sound of that flat-six engine, which I had tuned to perfection, roared through my phone speakers. He didn't even know how to shift properly. I could hear the gears crying out under his inexperienced hands. If you're watching this, and you've ever had a sibling take credit for your hard work, or a family that treats your success like it's communal property, you know the rage that was bubbling inside me. Before I show you how I used my skills to take him down, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps get these stories out to people who need to know they're not alone in dealing with toxic families. By day 3, I had finished my presentation. I decided to check the legal section of my car's CloudLink. Every high-end car has a digital footprint. I looked at the registration logs. My blood turned to ice. 2 days before I left, someone had logged into the DMV's online portal using my home computer. There was a pending request for a transfer of title. My father, Robert, had used my digital signature, which he'd found on the tax documents I asked him to file for me, to attempt to transfer the Porsche into Austin's name as a gift. They weren't just borrowing it. They were stealing the entire legal ownership. It was fraud. Pure, calculated, familial fraud. I sat on the edge of my bed in San Francisco, the city lights twinkling outside, and I realized that the family I thought I was supporting was actually a group of predators. They had been waiting for this trip. They had hugged me goodbye, wished me luck, and then immediately went to work stripping me of the one thing I had bought for myself. "You want a gift, Austin?" I whispered to the empty room. "I'll give you a gift you'll never forget." I opened my coding environment on my laptop. I didn't want to kill the car while he was on the Vegas Strip. I needed him to be somewhere where the realization of his failure would hit him the hardest. I checked his itinerary. He was planning a sunset photo shoot in the Red Rock Canyon, about 20 miles outside of the city. A remote, beautiful, and very isolated stretch of desert road. Perfect. On day 4, I headed back to the airport. My work in San Francisco was done, but my real work was just beginning. As I sat in the airport lounge, I watched the blue dot. Austin was moving. He was leaving the hotel. He was heading west, towards the desert. I could see his speed, 95 miles per hour. He was treating the canyon roads like a racetrack. My app started sending me brake overheat and transmission stress alerts. He was destroying my car. I felt a twinge of sadness for the machine, but it was overshadowed by a cold, hard resolve. I received a text from my father. "Hey, Olivia. Hope the trip is finishing well. We're having a quiet dinner at home. Can't wait to have you back. Love, Dad." I didn't reply. I just watched the screen. The blue dot entered the Red Rock area. The cellular signal was weak, but my custom module was built for this. I saw him pull over at a scenic lookout point. He was probably setting up his tripod. I pulled up the command console on my phone. System_access. Authorized vehicle status. Parked. Location status. Remote_desert_desert_442. I looked at the big red button on my screen. Initiate lockdown. But I didn't press it yet. I wanted him to feel the power first. I wanted him to be in the middle of a drive, feeling like the king of the world, before I pulled the rug out from under him. I waited until the GPS showed him back on the road, heading deeper into the scenic loop, miles away from the nearest gas station or cell tower. My phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. "Austin Live is live now." I clicked on it. There he was, the wind in his hair, the desert sun behind him, driving my Porsche with one hand on the wheel and the other holding his phone. "Check this out, fam," he was shouting to 300 live viewers. "The handling on this 911 is insane. You guys told me I couldn't do it, but look at me now. When you want something, the universe just hands you the keys." "No, Austin," I said, my thumb hovering over the screen. "I handed you the keys, and now I'm taking them back." I tapped the screen. Stage 1, the nudge. Suddenly, on his live feed, I saw the dashboard of the Porsche light up like a Christmas tree. A loud, piercing chime echoed through the cabin. "Wait, what's that?" Austin's voice faltered. He looked at the screen. A massive red warning appeared. "Critical engine failure. Oil pressure 0. Pull over immediately." Guys, I think there's a glitch," Austin said, his bravado slipping. He tried to accelerate, but I had already capped the throttle at 15%. The car began to chug and lose speed. "No, no, no! Come on, baby, don't do this to me," he pleaded. He pulled over onto the gravel shoulder, the dust kicking up around the silver wheels. He tried to dial, but his phone showed no service. He stepped out of the car to find a signal, leaving the door open. This was it. I swiped right on my app. Stage 2, the containment. The car's horn honked twice. Then, with a solid mechanical clunk, the doors locked. The windows rolled up automatically and sealed. The engine made one final wheezing sound and went completely silent. Austin grabbed the door handle and pulled. Nothing. He ran to the passenger side. Nothing. He began to bang on the glass of the car he had just claimed was his. "Open up! What the hell is happening?" He looked at his phone. Still no service. He looked at the road. It was empty. I sat in the airport lounge in San Francisco, took a slow sip of my sparkling water, and watched his live stream cut out as his phone battery finally died. The golden child was finally in the dark. And for the first time in my life, I felt perfectly, beautifully bright. The flight back to Seattle was the quietest 4 hours of my life. Most people on a plane are busy watching movies or sleeping, but I was staring at a glowing blue dot on my phone, watching it pulse like a dying star in the middle of the Nevada desert. I knew exactly where Austin was. I knew exactly what he was doing. And more importantly, I knew exactly what was about to happen to him. When the Uber dropped me off at the house, the sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the driveway where my Porsche should have been. I took a deep breath, adjusted my laptop bag, and walked inside. I expected them to be hiding. I expected them to be sheepish. But no. Robert and Diane were sitting in the living room, sharing a bottle of wine that, you guessed it, I had paid for. They looked up as I entered, and for a second I saw a flicker of something like guilt in my mother's eyes. It was gone in a heartbeat, replaced by that familiar, defensive mask. "You're back early, Olivia," my father said, leaning back in his chair. He didn't offer to help with my bags. He didn't ask how the multi-million-dollar presentation went. He just braced himself for the explosion he thought was coming. I set my bags down slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a vase. I just looked at the empty spot on the wall where I usually hung my car keys. "Where's my car, Dad?" I asked. My voice was like ice, flat, cold, and hard. "We told you, Olivia," my mom chimed in, her voice rising in that high-pitched tone. "Austin needed it. He's at the summit. Why are you being so difficult? It's just a car. It's sitting in a hotel parking lot, perfectly safe." "Safe?" I repeated the word. "You forged my signature on a title transfer, Dad. I saw the DMV logs. You weren't just loaning him the car. You were trying to steal it, legally." My father's face turned a deep, ugly shade of purple. "I did what I had to do for my son. You have everything. You have the career, the house, the money. Austin has nothing because you won't help him. I'm the head of this family, and I decided that car was a better investment in his future than sitting in a garage while you're away." "It's not an investment, Robert," I said, dropping the dad title. "It's Grand Theft Auto." "Oh, stop with the drama," my mother snapped, standing up. "Who are you going to call? The police? On your own father? Think about what people would say. You'd be the daughter who threw her family in jail over a piece of metal." They were so confident. They thought they had me cornered because they knew I was the good daughter. They thought my love for them was a chain they could pull whenever they wanted more of my money. And that's when it happened. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, a sound bubbled up from my chest, a genuine, deep, and slightly terrifying laugh. I leaned against the doorframe and I laughed until my eyes watered. My parents looked at each other, genuine confusion replacing their arrogance. "What's so funny?" my father demanded. "No," I said, wiping a tear from my eye as the laughter subsided into a cold, sharp smile. "I've just realized how much I've overestimated you both. You thought you were so clever, waiting for me to leave, stealing the keys, even trying to forge the title. You thought you were handing Austin the keys to his dream life. But you didn't hand him a car. You handed him a high-tech cage, and I just locked the door." "What are you talking about?" my mother asked, her voice trembling slightly as she looked at the map on my phone. "That's Austin," I said, "and right now he's exactly 18.4 miles outside of Las Vegas, on a stretch of road in the Red Rock Canyon where the cell service is almost non-existent, and the temperature is about to drop to 40 degrees. So, he'll just drive back, my father scoffed. He can't, I replied, my thumb hovering over the screen. You see, I'm a senior software engineer. I don't just write code for apps. I write code for systems. A month ago, I installed a custom OBD2 interface in that Porsche. I call it the reality check module. It's integrated directly into the car's ECU and the central locking system. I tapped a button on the screen. Protocol, containment active, doors, locked, external override disabled, ignition, killed, fuel pump, offline. 5 minutes ago, I continued, I triggered stage 2. Austin was probably driving about 80 miles an hour, feeling like a king. Then every warning light on the dash went off. The car entered limp mode, forcing him to pull over. As soon as the GPS confirmed the car was stationary, I activated stage 3, containment. The doors are locked, the windows are sealed, the engine is dead. Austin is currently sitting in a $150,000 metal box. He is alone, in the dark, in the desert, and he's not going anywhere until I say so. Right on cue, my father's phone began to vibrate violently on the coffee table. The caller ID read, Austin. Robert grabbed the phone, his hands shaking. Austin, are you okay? I could hear Austin's voice through the speaker. He was sobbing. Dad, the car just stopped. I can't get out. The doors won't open. It's freezing out here. Dad, please help me. I think the car is possessed. Everything is flashing red. Olivia, open the doors, my mother screamed, lunging for my phone. I stepped back, easily dodging her. No, I said. He wanted a win? He's got one. He's the star of his own survival movie now. I wonder how many likes he'll get for a video of him crying in a locked Porsche. You're a monster, my father roared. He's your brother. He could die out there. He's not going to die, Robert. There's enough oxygen in that cabin for 3 days. But he is going to be very, very uncomfortable. And while he's sitting there, he'll have plenty of time to think about why he's in this situation. He'll have time to think about how you two lied to me to give him something that wasn't yours to give. I walked over to the kitchen island and poured myself a glass of water. I felt a strange sense of peace. I'll tell you what's going to happen, I said, looking my father in the eye. You're going to call the DMV tomorrow morning and cancel that title transfer. You're going to sign a document I've prepared admitting that you took the car without permission. And you, Diane, are going to explain to me why you thought it was okay to look me in the eye and lie about my car being in the garage. And if we don't, my father hissed. Then I don't press the unlock button, I said simply. And I call the Nevada Highway Patrol and report a stolen vehicle with a suspect trapped inside. Austin will be home in a few days. But he'll be coming home in a police cruiser, and he'll be looking at 10 years for grand theft auto and fraud. And since you forged my signature, you'll be his cellmates. The room went silent. The only sound was the muffled crying of Austin through the phone on the table. I'm going to my room, I said, standing up. I have a few more lines of code to run. I suggest you both think very carefully about your next words. Because Austin's phone battery is at 3%, and the desert gets very cold at night. I walked upstairs, the sound of my father's desperate, Austin? Austin! Fading behind me. The golden child was finally in the dark, and I had never felt more enlightened. The silence that followed the end of Austin's live stream was heavy, broken only by the sound of the rain against the Seattle windows and my mother's ragged breathing. In the desert, hundreds of miles away, my brother was discovering that the world didn't owe him a living. Here in the living room, my parents were discovering that their ATM had finally grown a spine made of cold, hard steel. Olivia, please, my mother whispered, her voice trembling. He's terrified. Just unlock the car. We'll make him come home. We'll make him apologize. Just don't let him stay out there in the dark. I looked at her, and for a second I saw the woman who used to tuck me in. But then I remembered the woman who let me pay for her groceries while she funneled my money to Austin. I remembered the woman who lied to my face just 3 days ago. "He chose the dark, Mom," I said calmly. "He chose to take a car he didn't own, to a place he shouldn't be, using a name he didn't earn. He wanted to live the luxury life. Well, this is the cost of admission." My father grabbed his jacket. "I'm calling the Nevada Highway Patrol. I'll tell them my son is stranded." "Go ahead," I shrugged, leaning back in my chair. "But remember, as soon as they run the plates, they'll see the car is registered to me. They'll see the stolen vehicle report I filed 10 minutes ago. And when they find him locked inside a car with a forged title transfer document in the glove box, they won't be looking for a tow truck. They'll be looking for handcuffs." Robert froze, his hand on the doorknob. The realization finally hit him. I wasn't just playing a game. I was following a script. A legal, logical script that led to one place: accountability. While my parents panicked, I opened my laptop and patched through to the car's internal microphone. It was a feature I'd added for voice command diagnostics, but now it served a different purpose. I turned on the speakers in the living room. Austin's voice filled the house. He was crying, a messy, ugly sound. "Hello? Is anyone there? Dad? Mom? Please, the doors won't open. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to look cool. I'll give the car back, I promise. Just let me out." "Listen to him, Olivia," Diane screamed. "He's your brother." "I am listening," I said. "I'm listening to the sound of a 24-year-old man finally realizing that his actions have consequences. You didn't raise him to be a man, Robert. You raised him to be a parasite. And parasites die when the host stops feeding them." At that moment, the tracking app sent an alert. "External presence detected." I switched the feed to the car's external 360-degree cameras. 2 sets of bright, flashing red and blue lights illuminated the desert sand. 2 Nevada Highway Patrol cruisers had pulled up behind the Porsche. "It's happening," I said, turning the laptop screen toward my parents. On the screen, we watched as 2 officers approached the car with flashlights. They tried the door handles. Locked. They knocked on the window. We could see Austin's face pressed against the glass. One of the officers spoke into his radio. A moment later, my phone rang. It was an out-of-state number. "This is Olivia Ramsey," I said, putting it on speaker so my parents could hear every word. "Ms. Ramsey, this is Officer Miller with the Nevada Highway Patrol. We've located your vehicle. We have a suspect inside, but the vehicle's security system is preventing us from gaining entry. Can you remotely unlock the doors?" My mother lunged for the phone. "Yes, unlock them. Tell them it was a mistake." I pushed her back gently but firmly. "Officer Miller," I said, my voice clear and steady. "The suspect inside is my brother, Austin. He took the vehicle without permission while I was out of the state. My parents also attempted to forge a title transfer in his name. I wish to press full charges for grand theft auto and fraud." The silence in the living room was deafening. "Are you sure, Ms. Ramsey?" the officer asked. "No," I said. "I've spent 30 years handling domestic disputes. Tonight, I'm handling a crime. Unlock the doors for them, but do not release the ignition. He's all yours." I tapped the unlock button on my screen. On the camera feed, we heard the clack of the magnetic locks releasing. The officers opened the door and pulled Austin out. He fell to his knees, sobbing. They didn't listen. They spun him around, clicked the cuffs onto his wrists, and read him his rights in the middle of the Nevada desert. My mother collapsed onto the floor, wailing. My father just sank into his armchair. "You've destroyed this family," my father whispered, his voice broken. "No, Robert," I said, standing up and closing my laptop. "You destroyed this family when you decided that one child's happiness was worth more than the other child's life. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped holding the pieces together." I walked to the foyer and picked up my suitcase. "Where are you going?" Diane gasped through her tears. To a hotel, I said. And tomorrow, I'm calling the bank. Since I pay the majority of the mortgage on this house and my name is on the primary deed, I'm starting the process of putting it on the market. You have 30 days to find a new place to live. Maybe Austin can help you find an apartment once he's out on bail. If you can afford the bail, that is, because I certainly won't be paying it. I opened the front door. The cool Seattle air felt like a victory. Olivia, you can't do this! We're your parents! My father shouted. I turned back one last time. You were my parents, but a parent's job is to protect their children. You only ever protected Austin. Now, it's time I started protecting myself. I walked out, the sound of the door closing behind me being the most satisfying click I had ever heard. Austin was in jail, the Porsche was safe in police impound, and for the first time in 30 years, the weight on my shoulders was gone. The next few months were a blur of legal documents, real estate agents, and a silence that I eventually learned to call peace. I didn't go back to that house, not to live anyway. I stayed in a high-end hotel downtown for a week while my lawyer finalized the paperwork to put the Seattle property on the market. My name was on the deed, and since I had been the one covering the mortgage and taxes while they lived there for free, the law was firmly on my side. The day the for sale sign went up was the day my parents finally realized the gravy train had derailed. My mother sent me dozens of messages, alternating between begging for forgiveness and calling me a heartless monster who was throwing her own parents onto the street. My father was quieter, but his silence was heavy with the weight of a man who had lost his favorite tool of manipulation. I didn't reply to a single one. I blocked their numbers, blocked their emails, and even removed myself from the family group chat they had used to talk behind my back for years. Austin's fate was a slow-motion car crash of his own making. Without me to pay for a high-powered defense attorney, he was assigned a public defender. The Nevada Highway Patrol didn't care about his potential or his Instagram following. They saw a 24-year-old man in possession of a stolen vehicle with a forged title. He eventually took a plea deal. 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a permanent felony record for grand theft auto. His influencer career died that night in the desert. His followers didn't want to watch a success coach who was doing court-ordered roadside trash pickup. As for my parents, they were forced to downsize to a small, 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, an apartment they had to pay for themselves using what was left of my father's meager retirement fund. They had to face the reality of a son who couldn't support them and a daughter who finally refused to. I heard through a distant cousin that they were struggling. For a moment, a tiny flicker of the old guilt tried to spark in my chest, but I quickly snuffed it out with the memory of my empty driveway and my mother's lying voice. I bought myself a condo in a secured building overlooking the water. It's smaller than the house, but every square inch of it belongs to me. There are no spare keys for people who don't respect my boundaries. There is no golden child room. There is just my work, my peace, and my new car, the Porsche 911, which I had professionally detailed and scrubbed of any trace of Austin's presence. I've started surrounding myself with soul ties instead of just blood ties. I spend my weekends with friends who celebrate my success rather than viewing it as a communal bank account. I've learned that being part of a family doesn't mean being a victim. It doesn't mean you owe people your life just because they were there when it started. Standing on my balcony today, watching the sunset over the Sound, I realized that the kill switch wasn't just for the car. It was for the cycle of abuse I'd been trapped in for 30 years. I didn't lose my family. I escaped a prison. And if you're out there, feeling like you're the only responsible one, being used by the people you love, remember this. Boundaries don't make you mean. They just make the silence a lot easier to live in. Thank you for following Olivia's journey. If you want more stories of satisfying revenge and people finally standing up for their worth, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us tell the stories that need to be heard. Until next time, remember, your peace is worth more than their comfort. Goodbye.